Welcome. Do you have the image? Oh wait, it's up here. Hold on. Let me grab the link. Okay, I have sent the link. so everyone should be able to join now. So no problem. Let me know if I need to speak clearer as well, by the way. Welcome, everybody. We have the world's greenest Achillobator currently. Yes, to clarify, all of them. Yep, the red parts should glow. But yes, to clarify, all of the money for this one is by me, so no funds are taken from the Primeval Horizon budget. Look what. How are we all today then? Hello, new people. The Achillobator has become bold. I can't believe you shaved it, Ember. You had it coming. But yes, to be clear, if anyone has any questions, you can ask them in chat, and I am here to answer. Defeathered and ready for barbecuing. I don't think it would taste very nice. Birds of prey generally don't. They're usually very gamey. So it's like stringy. Yeah, it probably would be really tough meat, yeah. And it would just taste bad. Like, some people have eaten coyote meat before, and that's how I have to imagine that Achillobator would taste, which is very nasty, not very nice. I think alligator meat is different because alligators in general have a very different kind of diet. No questions. Very boring day today. Well, I'm glad to have you be happy. But yeah, see, the thing is, alligator's kind of generalist, and they'll also like they'll go for anything. So I'm wondering if it's that allows alligator meat to be more consumable. Because it's similar to bears, because bears are also generalists, and their meat is fine. So ironically, I feel like something like Tyrannosaurus Rex, that would probably be fine to eat, assuming it was a generalist. Because something like Achillobator would be going for very specific things. And obviously scavengers you don't want to eat. So anything that's a scavenger you wouldn't have. So nobody's eating Majunga. But no, if no one has any questions, I'll just talk about random things. I'm entirely capable of just yapping. Oh, go ahead. Anything you want to add, as long as it's within the green and red color scheme, that's fine. You have the DM for the only things that are required. Anything else you can go wild about. Be free. Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Go ahead and pick anything. Something I do think would be funny is maybe putting some okapi in there. Maybe you could take inspiration from the kakapo and the okapi. And get those black and white stripes on the skins to just contrast against the bright orange. And then you can have the kakapo, and then wow, I can say that name, kakapo. There we go. And then you can have the kakapo in the feathers. Up to you, really. But yes, what can I yap about that is Primeval Horizon related? Yeah, some striped scales I think would be very cool. Especially because obviously the tips of the feathers will be black and white. So it could blend it in some more. Obviously the feature feathers, should I say. Those big long ones on the tail, etc. Those are the feature feathers, if people were wondering. But yes, what can I talk about? don't know. And I could always talk about balancing. People are always interested in balancing. No, recently we did do some rebalancing. Actually quite a lot of it. Through actually many of the rosters. Because I don't know how many people that follow us know we have multiple rosters. Because we have the Mesozoic roster, which is the release roster. And then obviously we have the Aquatic roster, the Cenozoic roster, and then the Paleozoic roster. Which I am all personally excited for. I do like all the rosters that we have because they are very strange and very weird. But sometimes because of the very strange and very weird things that you have to have in the rosters, you can get some interesting balancing. Sorry, I'm just laughing because he's still naked. The Achillobator is still naked. He's been shaved. So sad. He'll get his hair back eventually. But no. Something I have been thinking about is how to balance buoyancy, because I don't know how many people who watch us know about our buoyancy mechanic. So buoyancy is tagged to a specific species, and it defines how much stamina you use when you're in the water, because all the animals, bar a few, can swim. The ones that can't swim are ones that have extremely positive buoyancy or extremely negative buoyancy, because then you just continuously float, you just sink to the bottom, and then you walk along to the bed. But the thing is, with that then, you have to consider the stamina within that. Because obviously, you don't want something that is not, for example, a semi-aquatic, having neutral buoyancy, which means it spends very little stamina in the water, and then just letting it roam free. Especially if it has good swim speed, because then you're just going to have something that is not semi-aquatic zipping around all throughout the water, using almost no stamina, and then attacking things. Like, that is not the way to go. So usually if there is something that is not semi-aquatic, it'll be positive or negative buoyancy, which means it either neutrally floats or neutrally sinks. And then it needs to spend stamina to not do that. Oh, more people, hello. But yes, another thing is also obviously managing oxygen, because if something is negative buoyancy, that means it naturally sinks, and if it naturally sinks, it's going to need more oxygen. because if something that has negative buoyancy gets knocked into the water and then it starts drowning because it only has like a tiny amount of oxygen, well, that's not good. That is not balanced. That is not how balancing works. So obviously you have to consider the buoyancy within the oxygen stats themselves. And obviously when you are considering the oxygen stats themselves, obviously you also have to consider things like Torvosaurus, which has a mechanic that reduces oxygen even when you're on land, because it can choke you. So for something like Torvosaurus, it might actually be important to watch when other animals swim to see how buoyant they are, because something that sinks is probably going to have more oxygen than something that floats. Because if it floats, well, its head's going to be above the water anyway. So it doesn't need as long of an oxygen timer. Oh, these mechanics in the game are currently being worked on by our coder, Caveman. Swimming is less of a priority currently, simply because of swimming is swimming. But we are looking very much into effectively anything that's relating to movement. I do love the black eyeliner. How would Achillobator swim? Achillobator is not a very good swimmer because it has all those feathers. This is not to say it's a bad swimmer. It's just not a great swimmer. Being feathered, unless you have feathers specifically adapted for swimming, generally slows you down and makes you worse in water. Because Achillobator's feathers are mostly, well, they're more defense orientated. They are very thick, which is not good if you want to swim. You have to consider it like the reason that specific. I will say a disclaimer here, specifically domestic cats. The reason that domestic cats don't like swimming, depending on the individual, is because they have double layered fur. It's the same reason things like owls don't like swimming. And white owls look very beraggled when they are wet. But at the same time, Achillobator also has long legs, and long legs help with swimming. So, effectively, it's a decent swimmer. It does not like swimming, but it is okay at it. But something like Pachycephalosaurus, because it doesn't have. Do you think Achillobator could survive on fish? Depends what fish it is, because we have different fish. We have different fish critters, and each fish critter gives you different nutrients. You do not want to eat freshwater fish as an Achillobator unless you have the waterfowl perk. The waterfowl perk is a boss perk, so you will have to defeat a boss to get it though. This is because, well, boss perks are, they are the quote-unquote strongest perks in the game, in that the gimmicks that they provide, because each perk is a gimmick, is extremely important, and it also affects a lot more things. So for Achillobator's example, the waterfowl perk means you don't take parasites from eating freshwater fish, and then you also have an increased oxygen timer. But at the same time, something like the salt water doesn't impact you, because essentially the salt just dries all the parasites out, and usually the parasites in the ocean are very specifically adapted for whatever animal they're inside. Obviously that doesn't mean it's not horrifying to find a parasite in a fish, especially if it's a saltwater fish, because saltwater parasites look horrifying, but it's less likely to kill you. Because about 8 times out of 10, that saltwater parasite is going to be specifically adapted for that specific species of fish or lobster or whatever you're eating. Meanwhile, in freshwater parasites go, yippee, there's flesh. And they don't care what kind of flesh it is. They just go, flesh. What effects will parasites from fish have? Okay, parasites are nasty. You can get multiple different types of parasites in Primeval Horizon. We have external parasites, which you can get from not cleaning yourself. And then you have 2 different types of internal parasites. You have single-celled internal parasites and multicellular internal parasites. And all of those have different effects. So it depends which one you're on about. Would worms take your food? Well, okay, so to clarify there, worms are multicellular internal parasites. And yes, they do take your food. They take your food. You are more hungry. They also take your water though. So if you get multicellular internal parasites, your hunger drain and your water drain increase. And then also you can take a random tick of damage. So you don't want to get parasites. But if you do get parasites, you can get rid of them. That depends on if you can find a medicinal plant. But yes, TLDR, you do not want parasites. And that's where Prestosuchus comes in. Yes, it is. Prestosuchus loves hanging out in absolutely parasite-infested areas. And then it pretends. It has its long tongue, and it pretends to be a cup plant. What will single-celled parasites do? So single-celled internal parasites, they have... So the difference between single-celled parasites and multi-celled parasites, especially when they're internal, is how damaging they are. Because this is a difference that happens in real life. Generally, single-celled ones have worse symptoms, but they are usually got rid of faster. Because they're only single-celled, you can get rid of them faster because there's only a single cell to kill. But that's why they reproduce so fast, single-celled. But they have worse symptoms than the multicellular ones. So if, for example, your base tick is this is completely made up stats, by the way, just to clarify. So for example, if your normal hunger drain is -1 per tick, with a multicellular parasite, you might have -2, so it just doubles it. But with something like the single-celled internal parasites, that 1 hunger drain per tick, that might turn into 4 hunger drain per tick. So it's extremely bad. But they don't last for as long. But no, if you're asking for ones that drain your stamina, the external parasites do that. Yes. The thing with parasites, though, is they are very avoidable. All our diseases are avoidable because our disease philosophy is, do you fuck around, you find out. So to get parasites, you need to fuck around and then find out. So, for example, if you see a freshwater fish and you are not a semi-aquatic, do not eat it. There we go, lesson learned. Or for example, if you are something that isn't a scavenger and you see rotting meat, do not eat it. There will be parasites. If you see absolutely fetid water that you cannot see through, do not drink it, and you will not get parasites. So it's specifically tied to things that you, the player, do. It's not just something that's given to you randomly, because that would be unfair. But for example, if someone really wants to go and drink the really dirty water to find out what it does, we're not stopping them. And it punishes them in a way that would happen in real life. And then they immediately learn, okay, I shouldn't be doing that. Because you got however many stacks of internal parasites, and now your water drain is draining twice as fast. And now you need to go find a very specific plant, which could be a Prestosuchus. Are there any parasites that a player could spread to another player? So, this is something that we're discussing, but external parasites will most likely be able to spread because they are external. But external parasites are also easier to get rid of because, for example, if you're in a group, you can have a group member groom you, and then if you are groomed, you get rid of a stack of external parasites. Achillobator is very good at that. But there are also AI critters. Cascocarda, which is one of the smallest ones. If you find a Cascocarda swarm, that swarm will land on you and eat all the parasites. So there are ways to get rid of them. Internal parasites, that depends on if you get eaten or not. Like if you have parasites and then you die, like and then if someone eats you, we might consider having parasites spread that way. Because you got eaten and you had parasites. But that is something for us to consider because it would have to rely on balancing. And obviously, if for example we have a group, and then suddenly, because one person got external parasites, everyone has external parasites. That's not balanced. So it will be extremely reliant on balancing. So, put a to be decided in that. Yes, all of our AI critters, which are like the NPCs, the non-player characters, they all do something very, very particular. They all have things that they do. We don't have things that do the same thing. Yeah, see, that's exactly what the kind of thing that we have to consider when. Because, like, yes, but also, like, obviously people don't like it, like you just said. But it's also, like, it's not really balanced. Like, we are considering it, but it's not something... It's very reliant on the percentages, etc. And it might not be something that we actually put in. It might be a thing where each person can only individually get their own parasites and you can't spread them. Just in case. Especially exactly for the thing that you said, where a person just maybe someone is new and they're in an established group, and then they get external parasites and they don't know how to get rid of them, and then they spread it to the rest of the group. Like, I feel like that would be too punishing for a new player. Especially because it would impact other people's ability to play, rather than just the one player who didn't know how to do it. You know what I mean? Um, we do also have diseases, and none of our diseases are going to be transmissible because of how dangerous they can be. Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what we're going for. Because, well, it's going to impact everything else. It's a mechanic that a player should be able to engage in, and it shouldn't. How do I word this? Parasites should be something that is not optional to engage with, but is optional to obtain. Make it easy to avoid them, so if you do obtain them, it's at your own fault, essentially. It's the same thing that we are doing with the diseases. Excuse me, that was me having a drink. Something similar. Yeah, don't want a deadly bacterial infection. Don't eat the fetid carcass. Exactly. You can eat it if you're a scavenger. If you're a scavenger, go ahead, because you are a scavenger and therefore you are immune to it. But that's because you're a scavenger. Please underline the word scavenger. It's similar to what we have with the disease that is related to cannibalism. If you don't want the cannibalism disease, then don't cannibalize. Obviously, unless you're a cannibal, and then you can do it. But like, there's something that is excluding you from getting it rather than it being the default. Mad dinosaur disease. No, we are not including well, asterisk. We are not including most prion diseases. There is exactly one prion disease that is in the game. But we generally don't include prion diseases because it's just 100% fatal. And we want to give a player the ability to heal themselves to learn from the experience. The only prion disease that we do have is specifically a fungal prion, which is tied to the special boss, the Revenant, which is the one that comes in if you are mega packing. And then it's like, oh, well, you're mega packing, so you can get a little bit of prion disease. But no, assuming you are not mega packing, you will not get prion disease. Instead, the disease that is related to cannibalism in there is an ad related to oh my god, I can say words. The disease that is related to cannibalism in Primeval Horizon, there we go, is instead microsporidosis, which is it's a nasty disease. You don't want it. Do not look up pictures of it either if you are squeamish. But no, microsporidosis is a parasite that is specifically related to cannibalism, and that it is a fungal parasite rather than some of the other parasites that usually happen, which are usually other animals or asterisk animals. What kind of organism causes microsporidosis? Yeah, it's a fungus. You know The Last of Us? If not, you can look up The Last of Us zombies. Microsporidosis basically causes that. That's what microsporidosis causes. Except in real life. It is a fungus that causes fruiting bodies, some mushrooms, to form. But that fungus is very nasty. Does it typically infect invertebrates? Yes, it usually typically infects invertebrates, but invertebrates are not afflicted by it generally. They are the reservoir species. But if, for example, you have a wasp that is infected by microsporidosis and then it bites someone, that someone is then infected by microsporidosis. And then if, for example, a person comes along, eats the person who is infected by it, that person is now infected by it, and they will get the fungal bodies. Hopefully that makes sense. But no. Invertebrates can show symptoms, but it doesn't always show symptoms. They are just generally the reservoir species. So they don't always show it. And that depends entirely on the individual's genes. Oh, it's worse than veiny growths. It's have you ever seen puffball mushrooms? Go Google puffball mushroom, and then come back, and then imagine that growing from someone. That is what microsporidosis does. It grows puffball mushrooms from you, essentially. So it looks nasty. Yeah, you've seen people kick puffballs. Yeah, the spores go absolutely everywhere. But that is the point of puffballs. They explode. Well, it's not actually exploding, but they effectively explode. But yes, imagine little puffball mushrooms emerging from a cannibal. But I have to clarify here. This is a player creature that has cannibalized without the cannibalism perk or without having the cannibal tag. If you have the cannibalism perk or tag, then you're fine. And you don't get it. Does that mean the puffballs on the cannibal explode? It has a spore effect, which is just a visual effect. But obviously playables with the actual cannibalism tag, they don't have those. Or if you get the robust immune system perk that allows you to cannibalize, you can also have that. So there are ways to cannibalize without being infected by microsporidosis. Microsporidosis happens if you are on a player that does not have playable that does not have the cannibal perk or the cannibal tag. If you want to talk about exploding, though, I could talk about Afroplera. But no, microsporidosis is only one of very many diseases that we have planned. And all of them are very, very avoidable. Why does the big bug explode? Afroplera explodes because, well, all of the chemicals ever. Pretty much. Actually, that is like extremely simplifying it. But for clarification, Afroplera is one of the playables on the Paleozoic roster. and it is extremely sensitive to heat because of what chemicals it uses. The issue with those chemicals is that they are very flammable, and the issue is when they're well, hydrogen cyanide does not like. Well, the cannibalism perk only enables safe cannibalism and do nothing else. So, like, there isn't two different perks that make cannibalism safe. The perk and the tag are different. A perk means it's something that you can add to a specific individual. A tag is something inherent to the species. So Rex and Majunga are the only cannibal tagged in the Mesozoic. That means they have safe cannibalism and they can join groups. The cannibal perk, which is robust immune system. Robust immune system allows you to be a cannibal, but you can't join groups anymore. It automatically sends them a declined notification. But to go back to Ember's question, why does the big bug explode? Hydrogen cyanide is extremely flammable, and when it is if it's hot enough, it just straight up explodes. So Afroplera is very sensitive to the heat, and if it goes in a place that is too warm, it explodes. That's wild. This is the cost for having hydrogen cyanide. If you want hydrogen cyanide, the trade-off is you explode. Yes, Rex and Majunga, because their cannibalism is inherent to their species because it's a tag. So, I said this before, but perks are something you can add to a specific individual. And perks are all part of a tree. You have to spend points. You have 6 points, and there is 3 different tiers in 8 different trees. So a tier 1 costs 1, and then to go up to tier 2 that also costs 1. So you can have 2 tier 3 perks, 3 tier 2 perks, or 6 tier 1 perks, or any combination of those. They don't apply to the whole species, they only apply to that individual that you are playing. Tags are inherent to the actual species itself, and you can't get rid of those tags. So while you could play an Achillobator that goes and spends 3 points on robust immune system to be a cannibal, that Achillo can then not join groups. So you have to play extremely differently if you want to be a cannibal Achillo compared to if you want to be a cannibal Majunga, because for Majunga, that's just inherent to it. See, the thing is, the abilities that we have for the perk system are gimmicks. They don't affect your stats. That is how we are making it. We are making that extremely apparent. It does not affect your stats, because if it affects your stats, then you will have a meta. And we don't want a meta that is driven by the game. Metas are usually inevitable, but if they are player driven, so it's driven by players making choices for their individual character, that is much different to if a game just says, yeah, this specific perk is the good perk and all of the other perks are bad. It's also why we have perk points. You have to make builds, you have to choose which ones you want to go for. And you can only have one perk per tree. So, well, if you take the cannibalism perk, which is if you take robust immune system, you can't take any other perk from the survival tree. All of the other ones are locked to you. You can only have that one. But yes, another thing is we want to make every individual playable species extremely different. This goes across rosters, so you won't have something in the Cenozoic that plays just like something in the Mesozoic. You won't have something in the Aquatic roster that plays just like the Paleozoic roster. We want everything to be unique. Are perk points irreversible once you spend them? Yes and no. If you defeat a boss, you could theoretically use the boss energy to choose a different perk, to quote-unquote reset a perk, and refund your points, or you can use it to get a boss perk. So it depends on you. It basically relies you on going through a skill check. But also we don't have insane growth times. So if you want to play around with builds and just kill your dinosaur after, that is completely viable. Like Achillobator, for instance, if you have the absolutely worst diet, and there's like 50 million Achillobators in the server, it'll only take up to 40 minutes. So, that's less than an hour. Yeah. We also do obviously have the diet system. So if you have a good diet, you will grow faster and you will reach better stats. Sorry if you hear crinkling, by the way. I am drinking. But yeah, for example, if you just have an Achillobator and then you like just go sit in a bush for the entire time and try to AFK grow, you're going to end up with horrible stats because you haven't tried to engage with your diet at all. What if you have trouble finding food? You can eat it. You can if you're a herbivore, you can eat meat, and if you're a carnivore, you can eat plants. It's a matter of finding the right nutrients. And if you have trouble finding food, that's probably because a player has deliberately starved you. In which case, go kill the player who has deliberately starved you. Or like, you know, move. I'm not quite. Ember is great at making skins. Yes, so mixed packing, well, I'll put a pin on it because mixed packing is very specific. Essentially, every playable has tags, and depending on how many tags they have different is how much more they cost. So, if, for example, give me a random example of a herbivore, because only herbivores can mix pack. If you are not a herbivore, you cannot mix pack. Ouranosaurus. Okay, so Ouranosaurus has the tag universal, which means it never conflicts with any other tags. That means no matter what someone else is playing, you can pretty much always have at least one Ouranosaurus. But how many Ouranosaurus you can have depends on the other playable, because each playable, again, has different points that it costs. You have a total of 100 points to make a herd. So, for example, if you are... Hold on. What was that? Sorry, it was a bug. For example, if you are a Silosuchus. Oh my god, I can read. If you are a Silosuchus, you can have exactly. So a Silosuchus and a Rhinoceros, you can have 2 Silosuchus. You can have 2 Silosuchus, and then that is it. You can have an Rhinoceros and 2 Silosuchus. So mix packing, or well, specifically mix herding, because carnivores can't mix pack. They will be those ones will be extremely small, but they have it at the cost of being able to do more things. They have a bigger variety of what they can do, but then they're also a lot smaller in groups. It's basically avoiding the Swiss Army knife phenomenon, where you have a herd and then it just has one of everything, and then no predators can go up and kill them because they have one of everything and they can do everything ever in the game. We don't want that. That is bad game design. And mixed herds only get special benefits from each other if they're actually grouped. Yes, you have to group. And they don't actually get special benefits aside from the fact that you're grouped. That is it. You just get the grouped tag. If you are not grouped and you are near another herbivore, you get stress. You can't just walk together on Discord and gank. No, you get stressed out. And then if you're stressed out for too long, you get a horrible disease that lowers your health. If you want to walk together on Discord, be in a group. Just be in a group and then you're fine. Just actually be of species that can group. Because some species can't group. The roadmap currently is outdated, so I need to go fix that eventually. Don't know when I'll be able to go fix it. But we added another herbivore. That was due to new material about Silosuchus, because Silosuchus is basically what size we thought it was severely outdated, because the original paper describing Silosuchus was bad, horrible, and severely undersized it. So Silosuchus should be in a later update. And for the small mid-tier, so the light mid-tier area, which was where Silosuchus previously was, that is now occupied by Kongshalong. and I am extremely biased about Kang Long. I will admit this. Although hopefully I am not biased in a balancing way, but rather biased in a I just really think it's cool way. If you think the balance is bad, yell at me. It's fine. It is always morally okay to yell at me about balance. Just do it nicely. But yes, Kang Long is our semi-aquatic around 2 tons, and you're imagining a flock of Anzu and their muscle-bound Tyrannosaurus bodyguard protecting them. Yeah, pretty much. You could like theoretically definitely do that. You could make a little doctor's hospital area with a bunch of Anzu like nurses and stuff. But no, I really like Kang Long. If you have any questions about Kang Long, feel free to say them, because well, there's 9 people here and you're the only one asking questions, so you have free reign. Reminds me a bit of the budgie, Ember. Silosuchus is still the fire-breathing semi-aquatic, yes. Silosuchus, the only thing that happened with Silosuchus is it got a size increase, so now it's heavier, which means it's not in the same slot that it used to be weight-wise. Flamethrower hippo. Less of a hippo. I don't think he deserves the hippo title. So, more about getting away than absolutely running over, murdering you, and leaving. Amber, what if we made the yellow more of a cyan? Do you think that could make it look less like a budgie? You jest. I get the intent for it. It's just hippos are a very specific kind of thing. I like that darker blue. Sorry, I know you just went in and did all the light turquoise. we absolutely have a few playables that you could argue are hippo-esque, but I think they're more in the aquatic roster. But no, Kongshalong needs to go on the roadmap eventually, because otherwise people are not going to know if they don't join the Discord. I'm not opposed to it being the same kind of light turquoise amber. I don't mind that. But no. To explain more about Kongshalong, it's in a very particular spot. It is our echolocating lighter mid-tier, and it can also smack you real good with its tail. So Kongshalong, well, I will also just clarify this. The G is pronounced as a K, if you were wondering. So Kongshalong, its thing is echolocation, like for example a dolphin and a whale. So it has a melon. It has a melon on its head. And a big inflatable throat sac. Like a frigate bird. And what it can do, it can basically blast you with ultrasound. And ultrasound is not very nice to be blasted with, especially if it's a lot of it. But another thing that Kongshalong can do is it has luciferin. Now I don't know if people know what luciferin is, but what it is, it's a toxin that glows when it comes into contact with oxygen. So theoretically, if you tried to attack Kongshalong and then it tags you with its tail, now you are lighting up for everything in the local environment to see, because you are bright and glowing and neon. So have fun with that. Silasuchus is also obviously very good in the water. Kongshalong, it's a semi-aquatic, but it's not that good in the water. But what it can do is it has extremely good acceleration. So it's pretty slow, but then it can go from 0 to 100 real fast, and it can go extremely fast, but only for a short period of time because it has pause stamina. So it's more of a burst down kind of thing. In comparison, Silasuchus is just decently good in the water and is just decent. What will Kongshalong's sonic attack do? The sonic attack, so the difference here is that Rex uses subsonics. So subsonics affect the bones, and obviously you have very delicate bones in your ears. What happens is essentially what Rex's Roar does is it shakes all your bones around. That's effectively what it is doing. Ultrasound, on the other hand, cares about the flesh. Ultrasound doesn't care what your bones are doing. Your bones are fine. It doesn't matter. What it does matter about is your flesh, and your flesh does not like being hit with ultrasound, because your cells, what cells do when they're exposed to ultrasound is they explode. They apoptize. So it's just straight up burst damage. You get hit with ultrasonics, those cells are exploding. They are apoptosing. They are dead now. No good. Bad times for everyone. Except for the Kongshulong. Yeah, they are targeting very different things. Like, see, the thing is, subsonics don't care about flesh at all, because flesh, it just wiggles a bit, and it's like, okay, that was fine. Because the subsonics don't care about that. Subsonics cares about hard things, so your bones. And then ultrasonics don't care about the bones because they're too brittle. Bones are not brittle, but to ultrasonics they are. However, your flesh is goopy and it has a membrane, and if that membrane wiggles too hard, the membrane breaks, and that is what ultrasonics does. So it doesn't matter if you block. Kongshulong doesn't care if you do blocking. It will go through the block. Yes, but we have an option for screen shake, so then not everyone wants screen shake. So screen shake is an optional option, as it were. But we screen shake aside, can it briefly stun animals at close range? At very close range, yes, but at further ranges, it's just going to deafen you. If you are at close range, I don't know why it's roaring at you, because it can probably just bite you anyway. Hello, Caesar. Ember is doing a good job. But yes, we also have to be very specific about stuns, because stuns are so easily abused in games. And we don't want stun slop. We don't want pin slop. We don't want any of those kind of things. So we have to use stuns and such very, very sparingly. Simply because otherwise it's not a balanced experience. Yep, no stun locking. Stun locking is horrible. So we are not including it. I believe the longest stun we have is exactly 1 second long. So, you know, 1 second is long enough to mess up your inputs, but it's not long enough to be really annoying. Stun locking destroys all engagement. Not only for the victim, but also for the person who is attacking. And it's just, nothing good comes from it. Hello, Titanus. You're curious about Pachyrhinosaurus. Well, what specifically are you curious about Pachyrhinosaurus? The frill. Yeah. So the frill is going to be iridescent. It's going to have very specific colors. That is the longest stun we have in the game. That is 1 second long, which is long. It's long enough for it to stun you and then attack you, and then you have an attack back. That is the longest stun. It's around 1 second long. And another thing is, if another Pachyrhino tries to frill you, it won't work. There is a cooldown. Very much no stun locking here. Basically, the stun is exactly as long as it takes to get one attack off. And that's it. Pachyrhinos, I mean, they're immune to oh my god, I can speak. Frill flashes from people within their group. So not from other groups. Because Here at Primeval Horizon, we love herbivore and herbivore violence. Listen, the herbivores should be able to fight each other as well. And have reasons to fight each other. But yes, no, it's a group explicitly. So if you have a Pachyrhino from a different group and it comes up to you, and then frill flashes you, you are still going to be stunned, assuming you were not stunned like a few seconds prior. It's especially because we don't want to promote mega herding, especially within Pachyrhino, because if they were immune to flashes from other groups, you could just have a bunch of Pachyrhinos just sit around, and then if anything comes near, they can all just flash, and it's like that's just gonna make mega herds. So yeah, that is yeah. This is the kind of thing that we have to think about. I also don't know if you've read it on the commentary a little bit, but I'm QA team lead. So along with War Dragon, we are both essentially the heads of QA. So we do all the design work and stuff, the stats and everything. But yes. Another thing is obviously friendly fire exists. So you know, it's skill based essentially. It's similar to how, aside from explicitly stated range attacks, which are range attacks that actually work in actual science, because this is another thing that I'll... Yes, exactly. Another thing is that hold on, I've completely lost my train of thought now. I read that and then I completely lost what I was going to say. So never mind. It'll come back to me eventually. But yes, what was I saying? Yeah, I've remembered now. Another thing that I want to underline is that everything in Primeval Horizon is backed by science, even if it doesn't seem like it. Doesn't mean it's paleo accurate science. But that's not something that we're trying to go for. We're not trying to be paleo accurate. We're just trying to be scientifically accurate. For example, we know the exact chemical composition that Scylla needs to create the fire. We're not just giving it fire for no reason. So now Silosuchus needs to look for fat, because it needs the fat to compensate for the fire. So Silosuchus is actively rewarded for going after high-fat things. And it has a higher need for fat in its diet. And that's entirely because of what chemicals it uses. That also somewhat just... No, the weight increase is because Silosuchus was upsized. Like the actual animal of Silosuchus was upsized. We've talked about an in-game encyclopedia. Oh no, where it used to be was just above Majungasaurus in weight, and now it's around Pachyrhino weight size. But no, it's all good. This is why we ask questions. Then we can understand things. But Silosuchus it used to be around human height, and now it's like much above human height because it was basically the issue that happened in the original paper was that they gave the wrong what was it? God, hold on, I can remember things. Units, there we go. They gave the wrong unit. They gave the right number but the wrong unit, which made it a completely different size than where it actually is in the original paper describing it. It's like if you put cm and then you meant like millimeters. It's like that kind of difference. So it's like a massive increase. Be cool if Pachyrhinos from the same group had the same coloured frill spots to differentiate themselves. We would have to look into coding for that. Because obviously it would rely on something being coloured by not the player. because all of our skins can be changed in color usually. This one is a special skin, so it can't be changed in color, but that's because it is specifically designed to identify a specific role in the game. But if it nests and then it passes down, it will be able to be changed color. So. So no, to clarify, this is the QA skin. This is the skin that QA members will be using when they are doing QAing. So if we are going around testing balance, this is the skin that we are going to be wearing. Yeah, it's just something so then people can identify us. Because obviously that is something that needs to be able to happen, and we don't have things like obviously we won't have name tags and such. So it's not like people can just go, oh yeah, that Achillobator right over there that has the same skin as everyone else. It's Henry, and he's a QA member. Like, if you have the same, if you don't have name tags and everyone has the same skin, no one's going to be able to tell. So it means that this skin isn't customizable in game. If it is passed down, it will be. So the layers are still needed. It's just because this is intended to be a role skin, so it's a skin specifically for QA. If you are doing QAing, it needs to be this color scheme essentially, just for identification purposes. But obviously, for example, with testing nesting, it still needs to have bits and bobs, so then it can obviously be passed down. And also because it's not very fair if a specific people have a skin and then part of that skin cannot be passed down. That's a bit unfair. So like, unless Sia decides that it should be customizable, which he might decide, that is entirely something that he can decide. It will probably not be unless it's passed down. I still don't know where the stereotypical corpse bully aspect for the assumption of Sarata comes from, because we know that's not what he did. But Sarata specifically is a persistence hunter. Its entire thing is having insane stamina. So like, yes, it's a good, it's a better swimmer than the other non semi-aquatics, but its specific thing for being a swimmer is that it has very good swim stamina. I think it came from Mavrima. Okay. I will accept that and then move on. Anyway, we have different quote unquote corpse bullies. Although truly the correct term is kleptoparasite. You'll never guess who's our kleptoparasite. I'll give you a clue. It's not a carnivore. Majungasaurus and Spicomelus are the kleptoparasites. Yes, Majungasaurus less so because it can hunt for itself. Spicomelus, if it wants protein, is specifically a kleptoparasite. Majungasaurus can do kleptoparasitism if it wants to. It can entirely do that. It's able to do it. But it's not super specialized into that role. Spicomelus, however, is absolutely specialized into being a kleptoparasite. So it basically depends how strictly you define a kleptoparasite. Pachyrhino has the longest stone. What does Pachycephalosaurus do with that skull? It breaks your bones. That's it. It's just high fracture. Obviously not that the Pachyrhino obviously has high fracture as well. It's just doing it with a different place. It's doing it with his nose boss instead of his head. I just assume if it knocks you on the head, it'd be lights out. Depends how much armor. For a human though, yeah. Although we don't have humans here, so it's just really nasty. Yes, Spinosaurus is in the aquatic roster. That's for balancing reasons. All of the rosters are balanced. They are balanced roughly between each other based on their weight. But they are also more so balanced within the roster. So, for example, 2 playables that are 400 kg, they should roughly be the same balance-wise. But how exactly they are balanced, that depends on the roster that they are in. Yep, Sucro and Deinocheirus already exist in the Mesozoic roster. And it's like, Spinosaurus in the Mesozoic roster doesn't even tip into Apex level. What else can I say about the aquatic roster? I can say a lot about the aquatic roster. How much info do you want to know? I do have an NDA, but most of the NDA basically covers obviously sensitive information like stats. So I couldn't, for example, specifically tell you how much damage something does. What playable animals are in not in the Paleozoic, in the aquatic roster. I can give you a list in 1 second. Let me find my list. Okay, are you ready? I'm gonna read out a bunch of names. Right, so in the aquatic roster, we have, in the small tier, Ziphorhynchus elegans, Echinoteuthis cabani, Paleophis colossus, Martinectes bonneri, Pleoplatycarpus huizi. In the medium tier, we have Cyvodus, Heterostus, Archilon, and then Cretoxerina. And then in the large tier, we have Pachycetus, Aristonectes, and Purosaurus. And then in the apex tier, we have Spinosaurus, Temnodontosaurus, Hydrodermalis, and then Paleorhynchodon. If you have any questions about any of those, feel free to ask. And as for the plans for the map, essentially it's going to be a coastline, like a very waterlogged coastline, because there are semi-aquatics and aquatics in the aquatic roster. How many of those playables are fish? How do you want to define fish? Because I can make a joke there. Because, I mean, technically humans are fish. So you need to define how you want to define fish. They have working gills for accuracy. I can speak. Alright, let me count. Exactly 5 of them. There is 5 fish in the way that you have to find them. But yes, out of 20, I believe it's 20, yes it is 20. Is it 20? Hold on. Might be thinking of the wrong roster. I was in fact thinking of the wrong roster. This one has 16 playables. Which one was I thinking of? I think I was thinking of the Paleozoic roster, because that has 20. Can you tell which roster I've worked on most recently? It's the Paleozoic roster, and that's why it's in my head. But yes, out of 16, 5 of them are fish. So there is 11 non-fish. Will there be an inland barrier on one end of the map? Most likely. That's just simply for, well, it's a map. Unfortunately, you can't have maps. Why not make it a tiny island? Because if it's a tiny island, then you have a bunch of, semi-aquatics fighting over a very small area. Because you have to remember, you can't swim indefinitely. Swimming takes stamina. Yeah, it's effectively one big stretch of coastline and some islands in the water. That is effectively where it looks like, yes. Yeah, no, it's not that, don't worry. But no, we have semi-aquatics, so we need to have at least more than a little bit of land. And then there's also the consideration of the maps being used for mixed roster servers. So you have to have at least a usable bit of land. That, you know, not everyone's going to go to it and fight over it. There will at least be some space for people to spread out on land. Even if obviously the main attraction is the water. Hi, Paleo. But yes, if you are wondering when, we do have niches for effectively all the rosters. The only roster that is currently going through essentially concepting. Yeah, the roadmap on Trello is extremely outdated, and we are not using Trello anymore effectively. It's also a thing where all the other rosters on Trello should be removed because we are not working on them currently, except for QA. But yes, basically we are making our own website, and all the information will be on there instead of on the Trello. It's just not released yet. But yeah, don't worry. We know. If you want more information about the other rosters, I do suggest you join our Discord though. Oh, you're in the Discord already. Awaiting this new website. Yeah, the website will have more information effectively. The website itself, though, will be focused on whichever roster we are working on currently. So obviously, because we are pre-release, we are working on the Mesozoic roster, so it'll be focused on the Mesozoic roster. It's mostly a fact of there's a lot. And it's also a thing of we don't want to overwhelm new people by having absolutely everything on the website at a time. Obviously there will be a lot. Will the other additional rosters be post-release then? Yes. The aquatic roster, which is no longer the depths roster, is the aquatic roster now. I know. I'll yell at Sia. I'll go get him to change the Trello. Or let me edit it. The aquatic roster, the Cenozoic roster, and the Paleozoic roster are all post-release. So after we upload to Steam. You know, as a working game. And after the Mesozoic is completed. But yes, the website will most likely take a while simply because of how much we need to write up. But we will have an announcement once the website goes live. We have a Paleozoic roster, but that one is not within it. I can tell you what's in the Paleozoic roster. It's just the Paleozoic roster is the one that's most likely to change. The others are pretty much locked and loaded and just waiting. Cruise boat around and filter feed with the giant boat shrimp. That's the issue though, filter feeding is not a very fun way to feed in games. That said, though, I'm like, oh, No, sorry, I wasn't speaking. I was having a drink. I think having it as an AI creature would make more sense. Are there any insectivore playables? Yes, but it's like insects in general are just another category of food. Are there any anomalous cards in the Paleozoic roster? No. Not that I'm aware of. That's because they're tiny. I think people don't realize how small they are. They're about the size of your hand. Like they are itty bitty. The largest one is about the size of a PS4. Okay, I will have to leave. So have fun.